Hi guys. Right, my bench is a disaster. The office is a disaster zone. I did film a video for last week. Unfortunately, it's not been edited because the phone played up again. So, quick and dirty one today. This is the dock for my partner's Fujitsu, and as you can see, it's a bit mashed. Now, a lot of people that know me and know that I do the repairs have asked me how I do these. So I thought I would do a quick video on how we get some kind of structural integrity back in there and have a look at it. So first thing we need to do is get this open, which I'll do in a second. Because I'm going to need to do a little bit of plastic welding here. So I just want to put a tip in that I don't mind wrecking. I have a old, quite gnarly focus. You're going to bounce. It's not going to focus. Yeah, I have an old, quite gnarly soldering iron bit that I use for plastic stuff. So we'll get that in and on. We'll get into this. My bench is a bit of a mess, as I say, so you'll have to excuse it. And I've never opened one of these before either, so that's going to be a learning experience for us. So I'm just going to pull you in a bit. And let's get to this. So first things first, battery's going to have to come out. How do we do this? Pull down the hole, pull that over there, stand on one leg, stick your tongue out, there we go. So this is for a Fujitsu Stylistic tablet. It's actually a really nice little machine. I'm just trying to find something to put screws in. I've just put absolutely everything out of reach. Yeah, so it's basically Fujitsu's answer to the Surface, and it is in many ways a much nicer machine. Obviously you've got a real keyboard here as well. Unfortunately you've got a trackpad. I hate the damn things, but they are all you can get now. Ooh, that soldering iron's warming up. So what we're going to do is we're going to open this up, have a look at the damage in there, see what we've got to work with. What usually happens, what I think's happened here, is one screw has pulled out, which appears to be on a bit of reinforced plastic, which means all of the force of the hinge has been transferred to a small flat bit of plastic. This screwdriver is not as magnetised as I hoped it was. It is now. And obviously that piece of plastic has then failed. There is no screw in there. And hopefully, oh, that's just pinged open, that's a good sign. Because it's not a laptop, we're not going to have quite the usual fight to get into it. No, there we go, so we've got a flex connector in there, pop that out and we're in. There's actually a lot more in here than I expected. Right, what are we going to do? There's our hinge there, so you can see. Let's just zoom you down. So you're looking at this hinge. So what's happened is this has quite clearly ripped the bottom of the case up. These hinges are fairly stiff anyway. I will give them a touch of oil just in case. So what's supposed to happen is that missing screw transfers the rotational force from this hinge straight to this metal plate, which, as you can see, is used to spread the load. So we need to get, do we need to get any further in there? I think I'd feel better if we got right down to the bare bones of it, so to speak. Let's just work out how we get into that. That's a flippy up connector. So just pop that out of there. We don't need to take that ribbon out. Let's zoom you back out. Oh. Yep, got a little flip up connector there which I've just taken out. Don't need to worry about that ribbon. It looks like there's actually fairly few screws to worry about here. And it looks like nicely it's one of these laptops where all the screws are the same size. So that's the motherboard basically. I say motherboard, that's the docking controller board or whatever you want to call it. We've got two flex connectors here. that come from the dock. We've got a DC jack here that just needs gently levering out. I'm trying to avoid disconnecting as much as possible, but it's really not happening. So we've got a heat shield here, and the heat shield is actually staked in. That's a bit of a pain. We do need to take this out to get in and fix this problem. It also looks like this heat shield is supposed to play a role in keeping this solid. What's the easiest way of dealing with that? I did have my stuff around. Might be able to just gently prise these up. Normally they come off fairly easy. There you go. We will have to put this back in. And looks like that network port has got to come out. So we've only taken about 2 screws off so far. I'm happy with that. Maybe a smaller screwdriver would be better. It's just trying to get in and pop these heat stakes. They start life out as little plastic pegs, and then they literally just apply a hot surface to them, and as you would with the old style metallic rivets, that has the effect of doming the tops over, and they do that. They just act exactly the same as the ye olde metal rivets. We've got a screening lead there. One more, there we go. Do the same with that one there. Hopefully shot. And there we are. And we can have a look at what the damage is down here. It's very dark here. It's because I didn't turn some lights on. Let's have some lights. There we go. Now we go. Right. So we've got our damaged area down here. So first things first is we need to lift that hinge out of the way. What I'm going to do is actually release the whole dock assembly. And then I will remove our broken bit of plastic. Now the problem we've got is this is quite a high stress area, so this repair is going to have to take a lot of load, which means what a lot of people do with this sort of thing, you can see you've got broken off ridges there. So if we look over here, you can see the way that's supposed to be, and indeed there is a bit of screening on there. What a lot of people will do with these is literally just pop them back in, put a tiny bit of super glue on, and that's your repair. That's not really going to work in this case. I have a specific way of doing these. So the first thing we need to do is get this bit of plastic in, get it all flush, so that the bottom looks like the way it should. And what I'm going to do, so that everything stays in place, is put a tiny piece of electrical tape right over there. So what we're trying to do is make sure that everything stays where it should do, nothing really moves, and then we just have a quick look, make sure we've got no other damage. So that crack actually runs all the way along there. So what I'm going to do quickly is just run the soldering iron over the crack, and I'm going in a circular motion. This will stink. You do need to really do this somewhere ventilated. Oh, there's solder in there. There's not supposed to be solder in there. And the idea is to mix the two broken bits of plastic together as best you can, and we'll go all the way around and try and cover that crack up as best we can. Most of what's in here is under the motherboard, so we're not worried about it. But as you can see, we have some issues that are going to require a bit more work. Mostly we're never going to get the strength back in this area, and we do have a chunk of plastic missing. Let's zoom you in. I hope you saw most of that. So as you can see, what we've done is given a little bit of strength back. We need to get the rest back, so what I'm going to do is to zoom you out again. Out, not in. What we're going to do is use metallized epoxy, which I have found is the best thing for this job, and we will use a lot of it. So even parts hardener and epoxy. This is iridite metal that I'm using. Generally, that doesn't look overly equal. Generally, most of the metal epoxies are the same. It's actually normally the professional stuff that I use from places like Farnell. I've just dropped my stereo stick. I don't think we're quite even there. Wrong one. That looks better as it wanders off frame. Right, mix it well, that's important, otherwise you will have bits that won't set and this stuff will get everywhere. And you can see I have mixed quite a lot. Now the trick here is we're underneath the motherboard. We can see roughly what kind of clearance we've got. We've got about 2 mils, so there is more than enough to get in round here and build everything up. So first things first, I just want to get in around these. That crack will become a problem later on, but we'll deal with that later. You want to try and avoid getting on the surface of the standoff, because then you'll create a situation where there's uneven pressure, which will actually just cause it to fail again. Load it in. As I say, you've got to remember what you are actually doing is trying to rebuild the plastic and get all the strength back in here. You don't want to go on top of that standoff if we can avoid it. Trying to keep you in frame while I'm doing this, which is not that easy. So you can see we've got our screw around here, which we don't really want to get on the top surface of anything here. So I will go around in a bit and level this all off again. Still in frame? Yep. Easiest way to get in the back here is actually to wipe the spreader off into that area. And we just want to get down into there. If you get this into the screw threads, you're going to have some issues. Right, I've got a little bit on the top there. Let that harden. You can still see what I'm working on, I think. And then with all the extra guns we've got, we're just going to build up over this repair here. Now my hope is that where we've gone over the missing bit of plastic, that should get forced down against the tape. You can see that that crack actually extends up here. I should really have done a bit more there. But yeah, hopefully the epoxy will set against the tape and fill that hole. It's not foolproof, it does usually work. I think we're mostly okay now. Let's just get down in there if we can. Now, the other end of my spatula is flat, cut flat, which means I can now go around and, well, that was the idea. It's not as flat as I'd like it. Oh, don't go over there and stick the table. And we just clean off the top of these threads. Make sure we don't get any in there if we can avoid it. And make sure generally we're sat flat. This will take now quite some time to set, so I will pause here. Just make sure we've gotten all of this that we can. What I'm going to do is try and get up into this corner. This is now setting as well, that's good. Try and get up into this corner so that we've got almost like a fillet there. And hopefully that will be us. Pop that out of the way, bring that back around here and zoom you in so you can have a look at what we've done. So as you can see, we've followed the crack as far as we could. Oh, this is grainy. They are actually clear. There's marks on them, but they are clear. I've made sure. Nothing here is proud of any of this, and we're going to need to find a replacement for that screw. Let's just see if giving a bit more light will help on this. Probably won't. So right, I say I'm going to pause you now, and we're going to wait for that to set. Right, we're back. We're just going to do a little bit of tidying up on this and then we can get it back together. So as you can see, we've got all our glue up there. What I'm just going to do is take a Stanley knife. The glue is not solid yet, it's getting there. But if we rest the Stanley knife across here, we can then push the blade up and that clears those off nicely. So we know they're all good. So let's have a look at the bottom. As you can see, we've got all of that in there. That's good. I'm actually going to put that back on. I'm not convinced that's all going to stay there. So we'll pop that back on for now. Right, the next problem we've got is we need to put this back on. Soldering iron's warming up, but as you can see, we're going to have an issue. So under here we now have epoxy, and let's just have a look. I didn't think of this shield beforehand, so I think what we're actually going to have to do is at the very minimum reshape that so it looks something like that. We can probably actually go like that. So I've got some snips and let's remodel this. You would probably be able to get away with using something slightly less vicious than these if you wanted. You'd probably get, this stuff is so thin, you would probably get it with a decent pair of scissors. I hate tin snips. Go. And then we've got a little bit just here that needs to come out over to that heat stake. This is just shielding, there is no structural function to any of this, but I would like it back in there. Make sure we're in, make sure everything's sat roughly where it looks like it should do. And we'll attack these heat stakes. So literally all we do, you won't see that one, push it down around the stake, and then something hot just to spread the steak out. That is, incidentally, if you're ever doing a laptop with the keyboard that's heat staked, you can use exactly the same method. To be fair, the screws will hold everything down. This is just to hold the shield in place during assembly. There we go. So how do we do this next? Right, we need to look at the hinges. Let's just go and grab some light machine oil. Now nothing is actually dry at the moment, so we do need to be careful. Don't make anything worse. So ideally we want both. Can you see that? Yes. So ideally both those hinges need to be in the same position, so we're not putting any stress on anything. So we'll just put a screwdriver through and lever that up. Just a dab of light machine oil on each one. Having just lined those up, it's just occurred to me that was fairly pointless, because we just want to try and work that in a bit. There we go. Now we'll line them up again. So the board comes over, and here are our screws. Now I could, in theory, have made a metal plate up to go across here, but I'm not sure there's much point in doing that. So we'll get this side in first. Now the epoxy resin takes some time to dry. Don't just slam this back together and go off and start bending things and using it, because it will fail again. Ideally it needs about 24 hours to fully set. Okay, now we have a little subboard over here which I'd nearly forgotten about. Let's just guide that in. That's our Ethernet socket. Where is it? There's a peg there, there it is. And we've got a screw to just hold that in place. And then that goes just back in there. Motherboard is not in the right place, I can see that already. There we go, that is now. We've got our little power switch up here. Make sure everything is sat where it should be. And that power switch was just in like that. That's not actually a power switch, that will be a lid closed sensor. I'm not sure about that. It doesn't go there. I don't quite know why I did that. There we go, that's the way it goes. And there is a little peg there to locate it. So that's in, that helps hold the board down. DC jack sits in, and then we've got a little micro connector there. I hate these things, and I don't actually have a pair of tweezers. You have a tiny little blue tab on most of these, which you can get under and use to guide everything in. Just gently push, and then you pull that lock down. Where's the top? You can use the top to work out roughly what screws need to go back in. So I will just quickly mark ones that have corresponding captive screws. So yeah, that's about what I thought. There is actually only one to go in. Pop that one in there, and then we just snug everything in Again, don't go nuts on your nicely glued ones. There we go. Right, that leaves us with a ton of screws to go in the rest. We've got a ribbon here which has been nicely folded over. Guide the ribbon in, push the lever down, or bail depending on what you want to call it. So a quick look at what's going on here. So we've got a little keyboard converter board in here. Was that really the easiest way to do that? It's an whole extra PCB. That goes in there. Right, what I'm going to do for now is we've got that screw, we don't have that one. So I will just quickly get these ones around the edge in. I have a big collection of laptop screws downstairs. That should be okay once it dries. It's not the best looking repair, to be honest. So what we'll do is we'll put that screw in, and that screw doesn't want to go in. There we go. Again, don't whack it up way too tight. Pop this one in. So I need to go and find a spare screw, he says. And what we'll do is I will leave the one on the back of the keyboard out for now. Now you can actually see, I don't know if you can see it on the video, that corner moves as I put pressure on the screw. So that looks like it's a fairly, yeah, all the flex is transferred through the plastic there. I can see that needing a revision, but this will get her up and running again. There's me saying I'll miss out a screw. Have I managed to launch some somehow? I don't appear to have as many as I should do. I did have a bit of an incident while we were paused, and I managed to drop something right where those screws were. So I'm going to have to go down to the other workshop, which is downstairs, and potentially see what I can find in terms of spare screws. There's one there. So we are missing two. Right, so I'll go get some more screws, chuck those in a little bit. That's all happy. That is moving. It still feels incredibly stiff. Trouble is this has to support the weight of the tablet, so it's going to be stiff. In hindsight, I could have backed off the nuts on the hinges just a little bit, but obviously you then got the risk of you'll put this in the dock position and the tablet will just drop backwards. But there you go, quick, dirty. We could potentially clean up a little bit more here with the blade, but I think we might want to wait until everything is solid and dry. But yeah, it's not a difficult process. It works on a laptop which doesn't have quite such vicious hinges. That almost always works perfectly without fail, and you'll get a good couple of years out of the laptop again. With this, because of how vicious this hinge is, I'm not sure. Thinking about it, this might be one of those where I would need to go and find a small sort of piece of metal like this, something a bit more solid, maybe aluminium, and actually fabricate a new plate to sit under that hinge. it wouldn't be too hard to make something to go across here and split the load through that motherboard support. But you know, they're designed down to a budget. They're not necessarily designed to last forever. And I can get another one of these. It's not a particularly cheap job, and looking at it, I think the easiest way of getting another one of these is to actually buy another one of the tablets. So maybe I'll get myself a little i7 to replace my little Celeron that I use for programming the vehicles, and I can use that as a tablet quite happily. I can keep this keyboard for when I need it. If I leave this keyboard in the sort of laptop position, then it won't be a problem. But anyway, there you go, quick dirty repair. I'm waffling, and there you go. I shall get some of the rest of the videos up soon. I've got a light bar one which I've mostly filmed. Unfortunately to say, the camera kept cutting out, so it's not necessarily going to make a good video on its own. We've got some more emergency service stuff coming up as well. A lot of you perhaps don't realise quite what goes on in one of those. So I've got the main control box with all the relays for the changeover and everything from a vehicle. I need to strip that because I don't need the seat box that it's in. A friend of mine is having the seat box and having my old seat. I'm replacing the one in the vehicle to convert a 3-seater van to a 2-seater. So yeah, we've got to tear that down. We'll have a quick look at a Genesis system. Again, those of you that know emergency vehicles or work around them will be aware of what Genesis is, and have a quick look at why there are some problems with it. And we'll probably delve a bit deeper into our system. You can see here, this is one of the repeat displays for ours. It's just running on a soak test now. Anyway, I'm waffling. Catch you soon. Take care.